What's up, soldiers? Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. Baby back ribs in the oven. So simple. Even a baby can make it. What do you say? You ready? You ready to make these ribs, Polly? What you got there? Oh, you're more concerned about your pocky more than anything else. Baby back ribs, and this will work for any ribs that you choose to use. This was on sale, so we are using baby back ribs. First things first, we want this to be room temperature when we put it all together. Now later on we'll talk about allowing it to sit for a couple hours in the fridge. Take it back out, get it back to room temperature before you put it in the oven. Room temperature, oven, classic combination. Let's flip it over for a second. There's a lot of talk on the interwebs and everywhere else because it seems as though once somebody says it, it becomes the sort of norm. And that norm I'm talking about is this sort of silver skin or white skin on the bottom here. You always hear people say, take that off, take that off. You got to take it off. And it's very easy to take out. You just, you would grab one of the ends here with a piece of paper towel. You would rip down and the entire thing would rip out. Personally, I have never seen any difference, and I've done ribs, all kind of ribs, from the oven to the stovetop to the propane to the gas to the pellet to the charcoal. I've done all kind of ribs, and the recipes are here to prove that. Anyhow, no difference whatsoever. But what I like doing is taking my knife and giving this some cuts. Just score it a little bit. We're going to cook this long in the oven. Whether you do it in the oven or you do it outside, it's going to render. Most of that is going to break down. That's not going to cause any sort of chewiness or anything. But the little cuts that I made there, that is for my rub. Yeah, and we've got to make a rub to get into there. So again, room temperature. It's nice and clean. I'm not trying to cross-contaminate. This board here is my meat board. And let's jump into the sort of rub that we're going to put on there. And I like to be classic with my rub, but again, one of the key tips when making the rub is use flavors that you like. If you don't like a certain flavor, don't do that. No, you won't like it later on when it's all done coming out of the oven. I've got 2 tablespoons of golden brown sugar. I'm going to go in with sea salt, black pepper. I love me some garlic powder, some ground ginger. Ginger can be sort of peppery, so be mindful of that. I am from the Caribbean. We love our allspice in the Caribbean. Going with some of that allspice in there. And a couple more ingredients I like in there. Some ground cinnamon. And the sort of last is pimenton. I got this in Spain, I think it was. And it's pretty much a smoked paprika. And that's going to give you some smokiness. We are doing this in the oven. Now here's the thing. If you wanted to put dried parsley in there, you can certainly do that. And I may end up putting some dried parsley in there. Actually, let's put some dried parsley in there. So there is that parsley. And if dried thyme is your thing, I absolutely adore fresh thyme. Dried thyme, very, very rare would you ever see me use dried thyme. Any sort of other herbs, any sort of spices you want to add in there, again, make sure it is something you enjoy. So if you want it spicy, by all means, add some chili flakes or some pepper flakes in there. The other thing I like doing from time to time, I don't have any at the moment, is some dehydrated pimento peppers. And pimento peppers are basically seasoning peppers, so you get a lot of lovely flavor from it without the heat. So we've got our sort of dry rub all ready to go on there. We'll just flip the ribs over like so. Give that one more little mix. And if you wanted to use demerara sugar or any sort of date sugar or any sort of sugar that you like. It's just going to help with the caramelization later on and stuff like that. So feel free to use whatever you have or whatever you like. And we're just going to go on, sort of pat it down a little bit, like so. And I'm going to put it on the sides as well. So I'm just going to hold it like this and do all the sides and everything like that. Do a little bit on this side here, like so. Sort of pat it in there, flip it over, and then here, just going to go on with that as well. Now you would cover this, put it in the fridge, and let that sit for a couple hours. In our case here, we're going directly into the oven. So remember what I said earlier about room temperature. So it is at room temperature. So if you do decide, I am not allowing it to sort of marinate because I want to film this video, but for the most part, if I had it in the fridge, I would take it out and allow that to come back to room temperature before I got going again. You know, one of those things I don't agree with all the barbecue experts out there is that you need a sort of something to stick, something like mustard or something. They would plaster mustard all over that, and then they would add the dry rub to it. But as you can see, that dry rub, because it's wet, it's already adhering to there. There's no need for mustard. However, what I do like is a little Worcestershire sauce. I lightly brush it on there and then put that dry rub. You're looking for wicked flavors. That sort of deep, rich flavor of that Worcestershire sauce. Man, I'm telling you, boy. As we move along with these tips for making the perfect ribs in the oven. So I have my baking sheet, a nice heavy sheet. But what I did was I lined it with foil. And that's going to be, as we cruise along with these tips, we're to the point now where we need our baking tray. So I have a nice heavy baking tray, but I lined it with foil because that's going to help clean up later. So much easier. You pull that boom, 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 you rinse it off or whatever, you put it in the recycling. I don't know if your city or municipality recycles foil. Wire rack. I love using a wire rack, and the wire rack allows that ribs not to sit directly onto the surface of the baking dish, thus creating that air movement. If you don't have a wire rack, crumple up some tin foil and, you know, set it down there. It'll be uneven, but at least once we put the ribs on there now, like so. Actually, I'm going to go for a bit more space, so let's go on an angle. We have that air movement. We have all that lovely air movement that's going to do all kind of nice things and help us achieve that perfect rib. So far, we've covered a few things. 1, room temperature. 2, score the back. 3, create that rub. Apply that rub generously on there. If you want it, keep it down for a couple hours before you put it in the oven. But before you went into the oven, you're going to have it come back up to room temperature. So you're going to have to take it out of the fridge or wherever for at least half an hour. We have our baking tray. We line the baking tray. We are using a rack to elevate the ribs into the oven now. Middle rack, 350 degrees. If you wanted, you can lightly cover, don't press down, you don't need to do anything, lightly cover it with a piece of foil just to help keep that moisture in there. But into the oven, 350 degrees for 2 hours. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes in the oven. I've got a lovely crust. You can see what I mean about cleaning up after. It's going to be a lot easier. What we're going to do now is to sauce it. And here's another tip. Ladies and gentlemen, do not sauce this until near the end here. If you sauce it early, it's going to burn. There's a lot of sugars in barbecue sauce. And using your favorite barbecue sauce, make sure it's room temperature or a little bit warm. We don't want to put cold barbecue sauce on here. Just going to use some tongs. Flip that over. And notice how everything is rendered down there. Notice the pull back over here. I don't know if you guys can see that, how it's pulling back, the skin is pulling back. That is an indicator that we're almost there. And we're gonna sauce the top and the bottom. Be generous. Now is not the time to cheap out. And I have several barbecue sauce recipes on CaribbeanPot.com. So if you're looking to make your own homemade, I've got a lovely tamarind one, I've got an amazing jerk one, and not to be outdone, there's a guava one on there as well. So I'm just gonna flip this over and we're gonna give him a good dose. Again, your favorite barbecue sauce. Yeah? Got a lovely crust formed over here, boy. And that's what a bark, well, yeah, it's called a bark. Everybody barking. Who let the dogs out, roof? No. Stick to cooking, Chris. But anyhow, gonna hit him with that lovely barbecue sauce here. And back into the oven. So that to continue cooking away. The ribs is out of the oven now, but I want to show you guys something. This guy is always with me in the kitchen. P, are you gonna be a chef? Are you gonna be a photographer, a videographer? Man, this boy just loves to be with me, man. All sauced up. It took about 20 minutes, and I did sauce it a couple times because I wanted to get that nice glow, that nice sheen, that nice shine on there. Now please be mindful that you can certainly add as much barbecue sauce as you want. Just keep an eye on things, because near the end here, once you start adding that barbecue sauce, it's very easy for it to burn. There's a lot of sugars in there, as we mentioned earlier. The other thing is, if you find it didn't get as dark as you would want it to get dark, what you can do is put the broiler on, and the broiler just simply means higher heat to the top. And again, very, very careful when you're doing that, because those sugars and that high heat are a recipe for disaster. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I mean, trying to tell people the email address, them butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pot. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie? And the final tip I'll leave with you all is this. Flip it over and you'll be able to see the bones. This is then, oh, yeah, Polly's in here again. That will give you an opportunity to see between the bones where to slice it. And there you go. The perfect rib in the oven. Psst. Psst. You ready? Are you ready? Talk to the people, man. Are you ready to make these ribs, man? What are you looking for? No, we're making ribs. Okay.